Hi everyone. I just wanted to talk about the amazing new revelation by the UN Human Rights Watch that the Syrian insurgents have been committing various crimes against humanity, including executions, murders. And this is a year after these events have been happening and the UN had been oblivious to it, even though all the while they were accusing the other side of this. And at the same time that this has come out, UN representatives Kofi Annan are in dialogue with the Syrian government and opposition groups trying to establish a ceasefire. So why this sudden seeming neutrality? Even though if we go back to the very beginning, when Russia and Syria were calling for dialogue between the government and the opposition groups, they actually did not back it, and the US actually instructed the insurgents not to enter dialogue. So the way I see things is in the past they had been using the stick alone against Syria. They thought that victory against Syria was assured, and so they didn't need to give it a way out. Well, actually now, because of the Syrian military victories against insurgencies in various Syrian towns, they've changed mode to the carrot and stick model. They offer something and they threaten on the other hand. So the offer would be, like the easing of the media campaign against Syria and admission that, yeah, the opposition side has been committing crimes. And the stick side can be seen in the statements by the representatives of the UN. And I have a quote here from the article from VOA, Voice of America. And this is from the UN, and it says, "The Council has approved a so-called presidential statement threatening Syria with unspecified further steps if international envoy Kofi Annan's six-point peace proposal is rejected. The plan calls for a ceasefire, political dialogue between the government and the opposition, and access for humanitarian aid agencies." So the end game of this actually is for either the UN to force Syria to accept some of its stooges in power and opposition stooges, or to force Syria to allow them to rearm insurgency and grow it back up again. Because when they say ceasefire, that includes the Syrian military to pull out of the towns that it had already recaptured and, give them free access to humanitarian agencies, which basically means, let the armies flood back in, let the men flood back in. And they offer very little in return. So it's not a big surprise that Syria has tried to change the terms of this ceasefire, gaining the ire of the UN. And we can see that every time there's been dialogue and it hasn't gone their way, either with the Arab League or the UN, there's been bombings in the major cities in Syria. And this is to show Syria that they still have potential to create chaos and destabilize the country. But I hope that Syria continues to reject imperialism, and I want to say that we do not negotiate with terrorists.
These terrorists have already carried out numerous bombings in Syria, including Saturday's twin car bomb attack in Damascus, which killed 27 people, including a number of innocent civilians. The HRW report dovetails with the Arab League's investigation, which found that both sides were responsible for indiscriminate violence, a conclusion that was universally ignored by the corporate press. Only by framing the bloodshed as a one-sided genocidal assault by Assad's forces can a justification for Western military intervention be upheld. Corporate media networks have already thrown their weight behind dubious activists like Danny Daim and others who have been caught staging propaganda to reinforce the myth that Assad's forces are only targeting innocent people.
The news was brought to you by Hans